friends, and welcome to my channel once more. My name is Busola Akinyosho, and today we want to look at a very interesting topic, something that would intrigue you, something that will keep you stuck to this channel till the end of our conversation. And today we want to look at legal insights about marriages in Nigeria. We want to talk about divorces. We want to talk about what makes a marriage invalid. We want to talk about, just before you say I do, what are those legal things you need to look at, before you say I do to anyone. And I have a very interesting guest with me today. Is a friend, colleague. All right, so we have Barrister Tommy Vincent, with me today, and he has written a book that actually, throws a lot of light about legal issues we need to look at, when you consider the issue of marriage, especially in Nigeria. All right, we understand that in our climate in Nigeria, people are scared and afraid of the law courts, what legal complications is all about. Some of us, we are not even clear, really, on some of all these issues. Is divorce really real in Nigeria? Can I dissolve a marriage if I just want to? Before I go into marriage, what are those legal things I really need to look at? All right, so we are jumping in right away because we're going to be having an awesome time, with Mr. Tommy Vincent. Just a little bit about Mr. Tommy, he's a managing partner of Ivory Solicitors. All right. Just for his profile, he holds an additional advanced diploma in commercial law and practice. He has a certificate in media enterprise from Pan Atlantic University. He also lectures, with Pan Atlantic University, Ibejuleki. We'll get to know him more as we carry on the conversation. So right away, Mr. Tommy.
Thank you for having me, Busola.
Yeah, thank you for coming up.
Such a joy to be here with you.
Thank you so
much,
sir.
Well done. Good work.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. So right away, sir, we want to even start from the very beginning, So in Nigeria, yes, we have a man and a woman ready to either tie the knot or get married, or a guy is interested in a lady and he's looking forward to take the next steps. Are there things he really needs to consider or look at before he proceeds with marriage in Nigeria?
Yeah, but basically the law says that from in the time past, it used to be that from the ages 12 for a girl and 14 for a boy, that is when legally you are permitted to marry. Oh. It's just that if you are under 21 years, legally speaking, your parents will need to write to give a written consent to that effect. And that is for legal marriage. But under the traditional marriage, most times, like what we called child marriage was very rife. At 14, 13, a girl can be married off. And at 15, 16, a boy too can marry in that sense. So but nowadays, there has been some moderation to the fact that 18 will become the statutory age of marriage, given the fact that people have shouted a lot against what they consider child marriage. So anyone from 18 can say they want to marry, and the law says that once the people are of right mind, what they are entering into is clear to them that this is marriage. There's no somebody's trying to deceive somebody, or maybe there's no force, there's no intimidation. It's not a threat that you must marry this one or what have you. And there is no deception. Okay, what you're trying to do is not marriage, but eventually it has to be marriage. Once all these things are there, and the person has capacity, mental capacity, it's not that the person is not in the mental position to know that this is what is. And then physical capacity as well, depending on what the parties consider as physical capacity. Then marriage can take place between two young, consenting or old consenting adults.
Okay, just before we continue, I just wanted to ask, and also inquire, why did you write this book? Legal insights.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That book, it's a child of circumstance because in course of my practice, I've had to counsel so many people and represent many couples on issues of marriage and issues like that. And it became pivotal because in addressing many issues, you can see that many people operated from the point of ignorance rather than empowerment. So what they ought to know, they didn't know it. And that's why the book is written, although legally speaking, it's a legal book, but it's not written from a legal tone. It's written for that language of a street man, the man on the street, the woman on the street.
Yeah.
It's written in a pedestrian manner so that anybody can have a good insight into what the legalities of marriage is about. That's why I wrote the book, just to empower people with knowledge, as it were.
All right, that's legally. All right, so let's jump into, in the Western world, we are quite familiar with prenuptial agreement and all of that. Before you want to go into a marriage, you sign an agreement with your partner to say this is what will work, this is what will happen, and all of that. Isn't that a taboo for us in Nigeria?
To an extent, yes, it is. It is. People consider it taboo, but although it's not popular, but it's now becoming something that people are willing to consider. Because in Nigeria, you see, or in Nigeria, for instance, there are 3 types of marriages that are acceptable by law. You have the legal marriage, which is what they call, people mistakenly, colloquially called court marriage. You have the legal marriage. It used to be just that in those days when we had it coming to Nigeria, where the registry used to be will ordinarily be in the court area. So people would take it as court. Oh. So it was not that it's a court marriage. The only time you go to court for marriage under the law is when you are going for divorce. But for ordinary to marry, you don't need to go to court. What you just do is go to the registry. But in those days, the registries used to be within the court premises. So whenever you turn into that place, it's assumed you are going to the court to go and do your wedding. So you have the legal marriage. We have what they call the customary or traditional marriage. The customary marriage allows you to marry under your custom. So what thing about that is that we have in Nigeria almost about 300 type of customs or so, much more than that. Okay. That means everybody will marry according to the custom of that area. So, and that is number 2 type of marriage. The 3rd type of marriage is the religious marriage based on religious practice that one person is engaged in. So you can have that. Now, the issue is that for the religious marriage and the customary marriage, both of them are potentially, mark the word potentially, they are potentially polygamous in nature. Because in Nigeria, for instance, there is no culture that does not permit a man marrying more than one wife. So to that extent, it's a potentially polygamous marriage. So the man in that marriage is permitted to marry more than one. It might make a choice on basis of conviction, based on his own value system. It's okay.
This is under customary.
Under customary. Now, for the religious marriage, what happens is that you have the marriage of a person or 2 people within the confine of the religion. So if you're a Christian, you marry according to the tenets of Christianity. And by the way, there are variants of Christianity that I know. Because for instance, the African church, believes that they should marry under the Old Testament, one man and many wives. Oh. But the modern Christianity believes it's just one man based on the New Testament, one man, one woman. Understanding me? So there are variants of that. Now, under religious marriage, a Muslim man that marries under the Islamic rites. So naturally, by that right, it means that he has permission to marry more than one wife. Yes, so that's why I said that potentially both the religious and the customary or traditional marriage are polygamous in nature. So the only one that is not polygamous is that of the statutory marriage, which is called court marriage. that one statutorily says that is a marriage of a man and a woman to the exclusion of all others for the rest of their lives or until they divorce.
Is that why the current norm is that after you go for church wedding or the Islamic rite, you also do the
Some people they call it double-decker marriage.
Double-decker.
Because you want to. So because, for instance, under the statutory marriage, something like bride price is not necessary. Because it's not necessary. Because it is two consenting adults.
Are we not giving license to our men not to pay bride price anymore?
No, what I was saying that under that. But many cultures will not recognize such a marriage. You understand me?
Yeah.
That's why the woman, or most times, is insisted that, look, for you to marry me, even though there is a structure for legality, you must go back to my people and pay the bride price. Because under the customary marriage, bride price is sine qua non. You must pay a bride price.
Okay.
Is a way to determine whether the marriage has taken place. Because under the custom, marriage is not between the two adults, it's between the two families.
Okay.
So the exchange of bride price, it's a valid way to say that the families have agreed to that union. So that's why you go under that to go and first do. So many people have said that. In fact, someone have married that have gone the way of statutory marriage without going to pay bride price. In some cases, when there's something wrong with that marriage, the recourse is that you have not paid bride price. So we don't even know you as a husband, as a son-in-law.
Okay.
So that's why many people will still go and do the traditional marry. Ideally, once you get traditionally married, you are married under the law.
Oh.
You're married.
So we don't need the religious aspect and
It's
all
just
of
a
that.
choice.
Okay.
So that the choice that you're making with going for the statutory marriage, you're saying, I want to embark on a journey of one man, one wife.
Okay. All right.
That's what we're doing. Because if you stay at the religious marriage, it's possible that even a pastor tomorrow can become a Muslim. Okay. And then that tradition changes. You understand?
Okay.
You can be
marry modern.
So if you say you're going to stay with cultural marriage, it simply means that the man, the day he decides to say, I'm going to marry another wife, is justified by culture.
Okay.
Do you understand what I'm saying now? It's justified because he has chosen what the kind of marriage you did was customary marriage or traditional marriage.
So what you are saying in essence now is that once you go the way of customary
or religion,
it's
potentially
is valid.
It's valid, very valid, but just that it's potentially polygamous.
Oh, okay. So the reason we proceed to do a court wedding would be
to make it monogamous.
Oh, monogamous. But we have people that, does that make another marriage, does that make another wedding or another union invalid when you have gone to court with one person?
When you have done a statutory marriage.
Yes, with one person.
You cannot marry another person. You see, the law is that it must be one woman and one man. So assuming that the day you are going to that registry to go and wed, let's assume Busola and I are moving to that registry and I've taken a bookie somewhere under the custom.
Yes.
As at that day, except I've divorced that that bookie traditionally, except I've returned the bride price and say I'm not doing it again. So some women think that once they corner the man, and so maybe Busola and I now go to the registry, it means that the wedding I have with Busola or with a bookie, no, it's still valid. So the law would say that because of that marriage, the marriage between Busola and I in that registry is null and void.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay, so as long as there's a traditional...
As long as there's a pre-existing marriage, I cannot marry somebody under the status. And once I marry somebody under the status, assuming that when I got married to Busola now, there was no marriage existing before. You
Okay.
understand me?
Yeah.
And for some reason, Busala and I have some issues. We decide to drift apart. You understand me? I cannot marry another person except there has been a valid divorce of my marriage with Busola. So
Okay.
any other marriage I do is null and void.
Okay.
No matter how much I try to pursue that woman and look, me and Busola are no longer together. Me and Busola, we have moved away until there's an official divorce.
Both traditionally.
Because we married under the status, there must be an official court divorce.
Okay.
Is it making sense to you?
All right.
But if I married somebody before, that bookie that I married before, I went to come to Busola, that means that bookie must be divorced traditionally and must return before.
Must return the bride price.
Yes, before
you proceed.
If I have not done that, the marriage with Busola is null and void. Because it means that as at the time...
Ab initio.
Yes, ab initio. It means that as at the time I'm getting into marriage with Busola, I had already married somebody else, so I was not single.
Okay.
So the law will not allow the marriage to stand. So whatever we do, without the benefit of having children, whatever, those children are actually not the children of wedlock. They're children born to each other, but not within the marriage, context of marriage.
Wow, interesting. All right, so I've always wanted to ask as well, and then to find out, so what are those things that could, make, yes, we're already married, maybe court or then the customary, but are there things we need to be conscious of that could actually make the existing marriage invalid? Even ab initio, even when, the couple, they're already married and all of that. But if someone goes to dig up something somewhere, apart from another marriage, are there other things to look at, before saying I do?
Yeah, before I answer the question, I was talking about the prenuptials. So the prenuptial is that when you want to do that, you can only do that prenuptials more or less within the context of the statutory marriage.
Statutory marriage.
Yes, I mean. Because in the context of culture, what a woman owns, the man owns. Are you understanding me? So when you marry under the custom, in fact, it's so much that what the man owns, what the woman owns.
The man owns.
Yes, the man owns. But what the man owns belongs to the man more or less, because the man can share.
Under the customary?
Most customs.
All right.
Maybe for Yorubas, maybe for some reasons, a woman can have property. But amongst other cultures, mainly, it's almost like what the man owns.
The man owns.
The man owns.
But what the woman owns,
the man owns.
The man owns it.
Yeah, so that's what it's like. So that's why a woman cannot share property when she's late, or cannot divide her property. But for instance, a woman dies, it's the husband is one that has everything. But if the man dies, then it has to be shared according to, other things. But so the same thing in religion, it depends on the religion. I'm sure in the Islamic religion, the man owns everything. What the man owns, under the custom, what the man owns, it belongs to the man. What the woman owns belongs to the man.
That is Nigerian custom,
Most
right?
Most times. But there's other cultures, say in Ghana, I think the woman is a matriarchal or matriarchal society. So to that extent, the woman can own. I think in Yoruba land too, the woman can own things. But to other cultures, most other cultures, is the woman that does not. So that's why even in Igbo culture, for instance, if a woman is buying land or buying property, he buys it in the name of the husband, even though she's the one that has the money.
Is that still?
To an extent, it's just that
now?
now probably some women now buy it in the name of their children.
Okay.
Because they still cannot buy it in their own name, in that culture of some sort. So prenuptial will not be possible in the culture and religious sense, but maybe in the statutory marriage, it might be possible. That's why it's even possible abroad. But right now in Nigeria, because of the mixture of culture, religion, and whatever, you might not get it as really. I don't think it's really, really rampant in Nigeria. Of course, I have done one or two for Nigerians, but how sustainable it will be over a long time is what I don't know.
Okay. All right. Okay, let's quickly look at the issue of, in recent times, we've had issue of fathers, husbands trying to carry out DNA on their children. And, everybody's going haywire on the whole issue, testing and all of that to be sure of what is happening. What are the legal grounds for a man, in such situation? If, after carrying out such tests and all of that, what can the man do, is it to pay back or to get justice? Is there anything under the provision of the law?
No. The only thing you can do is to if it's customary marriage, they can handle it by way of custom. Because in customary marriage, if a man has not paid bride price and then discovers that in fact, even if the child is yours, because you have not really paid bride price, the custom says that that child will be that of the parents of the girl.
Oh.
Though there have been pronouncements to say that is contrary to equity, natural law, equity and good conscience. They've tried to say that. But that is still prevalent, although in some cultures. They will say that that child is not yours, even though you're the father. So, when the bride price is still not been paid and they now discover that the child is not yours. So in that culture, it's not in that culture. It just simply means that
you return the child back to
it's
the
not,
woman.
It's not still your child.
But under a statutory
marriage. It's a cause for, it's a ground for divorce because it shows that there has been infidelity. You understand me? So it's a consummation of a marriage by somebody else who is not the spouse. It means that it's a ground for infidelity. But then the people have a choice. You can still say that you want that child. You can still, because there's a provision for under the law that if you know what somebody has done that could be a basis for divorce, and you take it, you gloss over it, that can be a basis to see that you have accepted the child as your child. Are you understanding me?
Okay.
Because in that sense, you have accepted. And so you can also ask, no, it's not my child, but I've accepted, or I'm going to do the things I'm doing.
On to the next question, that has been on my mind too for a while. Is there any difference between a marriage being invalid and then divorce? Are there differences?
There are. A marriage can be invalid on the basis of so many things. For instance, if a man is impotent before marriage, you understand me, and does not disclose that is impotent, or maybe a woman too, sometimes some women are impotent, and does not disclose that, or has an ailment, or something that is very fundamental that the man needs to know, but was not known, or the spouse needs to know, was not kept. You understand me? Then that can make, if after marriage, discovery of that can render the marriage invalid. Or maybe the person, let's assume that there's a twin, identical twin, and who the person was married to was not who they really wanted to marry to. So that's in case of there's a manipulation of identity, then it can be. Or maybe, the person I was going to marry was not in a state of mind.
Okay.
Maybe at that point that was not, or maybe was induced or harassed into that marriage. So all those things can make sure that marriage, because the marriage has to be between willing partners who are ready and willing to go into the journey of marriage. So if you have a fraud, maybe somebody was, said it was something that it was not from the beginning, which was the basis of that marriage.
So can you just go to law court and just say, I hereby declare this marriage invalid?
If a marriage is invalid,
yes,
it means that it never was in place. So you have to get to the court to say please declare the invalidity of the marriage.
Okay. So you need to go to court to.
Sometimes you don't even need to, because in that sense, there was never a marriage. You understand me? But
So
that means it was ab initio, not a marriage. So in that sense, there's only for divorce. You just like,
you just walk away.
Yeah, the reality is
but this marriage could have been statutorily done or ratified. What happens?
And that's why at that point in time,
don't we need a document to now show that?
If you not say, because if you not see that, if okay, you can say, because I've done it statutorily, I need a court to invalidate this marriage, not to divorce.
Okay.
So when it's divorce, is the solution of marriage.
Okay.
When it's not the solution, it's called an invalidation of the marriage, because it was invalid. So the court is just making a declaration. So what God will just result in a declaration of the invalidity of that marriage.
Of the marriage. Interesting. Now, in your book, you mentioned a 2 years rule.
Yeah.
Pertaining to divorce. Can you shed more light on that?
Yeah, once the marriage is done, the court says that you ordinarily cannot be seeking for divorce except after 2 years. But there are exceptions. You can do that within the first year if there are exceptional case of depravity, or what can appear to us that it's a condition that you can call that it's beyond what you can accept as normal. If your husband, if the spouse engages in bestiality, maybe, or maybe is sodomy, is engaging in sodomy. Maybe
what's sodomy?
Sodomy is someone like sleeping with animals.
Oh.
Something that is, so you can say on the basis of that, or involves in like a crime that leads to imprisonment, that, or probably something that is grievous, that you can say, whoa, this is exceptional depravity, exceptional, something that is beyond what I can accept as normal.
Okay.
So in that case, that 2-year rule can be, and within the first year, you can go for ask for divorce. But otherwise, if that is not the case, then you have to wait. You have to go the 3-year rule, which is like those 7 rules.
Meaning, does that mean after separation, you need, after you have decided you want to apply for a divorce, you need 2 years?
You see, what I'm trying to say that.
Or there must have been a separation for 2 years.
The first year of marriage, the law court will think that you guys are still getting, let's assume that you guys are still getting to know yourselves more or less.
Okay.
The only ground when in the first year of marriage you can do is when there's exceptional degree of depravity.
Okay.
Something that is making that the marriage is intolerable. Intolerability is depravity. It was like,
so the minimum.
Man, yes, at that point in time, it was okay. We cannot go for that 2 years within that, because that one can be the first week, second week, third week, one. It can be anything. But if that's not the case, then you can have to wait that 2 years after the marriage, you now come for divorce, given the grounds, infidelity, unwillingness to consummate the marriage, the person has deserted the house, has left the house, or there is a separation. So there can be, so that from 2 years upward, it becomes easy to say I want to marry. So the first one is within the first year. Second one is from 2 years upward. You can conceive 25 years, 30 years, 40 years. It's 2 years upward.
Okay. So are there instances, what should people thinking of going into dissolution of their marriages, what are those things they need to consider before they take that step? And what are the legal implications, especially concerning maybe children, properties, and all of that?
Yes, first, let me talk about the psychological aspect of it. There's no divorce that comes, with that psychological effect on the spouses. Whether the one that think that is vindicated or the one that thinks that is a victim, both of them, because you have had, you see, even if you dated someone, ordinary dating for 5, 2, 3 years, even when you part ways, there's a remnant of some sort. Not to mention when you guys have been married, consummated, there's a lot of expectation that comes to you. So psychologically, you need to be prepared for that. It's not a walk in the park. It's not. Number two, when it comes to children, it has a very negative effect on children as well, because it becomes a case of who takes care of the children, who has the custody, joint custody, separate custody, and then how about the maintenance issue, the maintenance of the spouse. And the maintenance is not just about the woman being maintained by the man. Sometimes it can even be the man being maintained by the woman. It depends on where the pendulum swings in that circumstance. So the court will look at all that, like, okay, who has, maybe the man had empowered the woman financially or economically, and now when the marriage is over, the man might look as if he's a disadvantaged person. So in that circumstance, the court can order the woman to be the one that is maintaining the man. Yeah, it can be. And so it's also the same vice versa. The court can order the woman to be maintained by the man. It depends on. Now, when it comes to sharing of property, it depends, because, like I said, in Western world, there's what they call marriage property. Marriage property. It means that, you see, once you enter a marriage in the Western world, everything that you have, that's why you find prenuptial done there, because there's that milieu, legal milieu of the fact that what you have in marriage is entirely for the marriage. So what a man had before marriage and enters marriage with it becomes the marriage property. So when the marriage is ended, most times there's this presumption that the woman is disadvantaged party. So you find that most things, you find that when the court is going to make a decision, they usually decide to favor the woman, maybe in terms of settlement, in terms of maintenance, alimony, and what have you, and things like that. So that's why many men come out being shortchanged because of having to pay alimony and what have you. And that's why many men will say, let's have a prenuptial.
Okay.
Prenuptial. The same thing, because it's a marriage property, if the woman that is loaded in that sense, and there's a divorce, the court will have to divide it. Just like it happened with Bill Gates and Melinda Gates too. The court will still have to divide it. So the man will get a fair share of the woman's property. So that's why they usually do a prenuptial. But in Nigeria, it's not like that. All we have is that each individual can have a separate property. Are you understanding?
Yeah.
So in other the marriage, you can have husband's property, the wife's property, except the one they put together as becoming the marriage property. So that's why when a woman is contributing to the man's property, the man's building, yes, it's contributing. When there's a normal thing, it can be maybe you are the wife, and then there's be this or that. But the man can say that our money is not there, so I can settle out with another thing, but not with this property.
Okay.
Are you getting me? So the court will look at that, because in Nigeria, under our matrimonial legal system or jurisprudence, a man can have his property, the woman too can have her property, and what have you. So the property of the woman will belong to the woman. The property of the man can be shared between the man and the woman. But under our legal milieu, the property of the woman is actually that of the woman.
Oh.
You understand me?
That is in Nigeria, legally.
Under the law.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you all. I hope you've learned one or two things, from our discussion today. I would encourage you to get in touch, and grab a copy of this book, by Mr. Tommy Vincent. Get a copy of this book, Legal Insights About Marriages in Nigeria. I think, it's insightful, and, you need to delve into it just to arm yourself and to be knowledgeable about anything you want to go into, especially marriage.
That book is actually written from that perspective of any layman can pick that book and be so empowered in a way that you know so much about the law without having all the jargons of law in your head. It's a sure read and a must read for anyone desires of knowing much about marriage and empowerment in that sense. Thank you very much.